Here I am about 8 o'clock in the morning as I walk through the garden. I can't help but look around and see the explosive growth happening all around me. Now, sometimes we hear people talking about closing the loop and how we can take things that we're growing in our garden to help grow the garden. But this is something that I've been practicing for the past few years. And as things start to grow and progress along, I'm getting better and better at this. This entire season in the garden, what I really want to talk about is closing the loop. And that is using the things that are in our immediate area in order to supplement those things that we can buy from the big box store. Now, you hear a lot of people in the garden community talking about using things like alfalfa in the garden and what it brings to the table. So you're talking about excessive growth, higher Brix levels, and increased yield overall. Now, I've been using organic alfalfa pellets in my garden for the past 3 years. So you know I always want to take it a step further. So I started growing it last year. We're going to be harvesting our alfalfa today, and we're going to be showing you how to make a nice tea for your garden. And I picked these up at Tractor Supply. And you want to get the organic alfalfa pellets, not just any alfalfa. You want to get the organic alfalfa pellets. Please make sure that you get the organic alfalfa pellets. You don't want anything that has any steroids in it or any type of antibiotics, because that transfers back over to your garden. But this is the peak time of the morning, about 8 o'clock, when those auxins are at the tip of these plants. So we're going to be harvesting the top 4 to 6 inches off of our alfalfa, and we're going to be making an FPJ with our alfalfa. Now, you can't make an FPJ with the alfalfa pellets, but you can make a steep tea, and I'm going to show you how to make that steep tea. Now, I planted these alfalfa in October of last year, and as you can see, they're starting to flower now, which tells me that it's at the peak time for harvest. And again, we want to get the top 4 to 6 inches off of each plant, and we're going to come down and basically we're going to trim the whole top of these off. And then we're going to make us an FPJ with these. And the beautiful part about the alfalfa is when a bee lands on them, the plant wants to have genetic diversity. So it triggers like a fly trap, so to speak. When the bee lands on the flower and it feels that it's trying to pollinate, it'll basically like clip the bee to make sure that that pollen gets knocked off, because it wants pollen from another plant. It does not want pollen from itself. So right now we're going to be harvesting the tops of our alfalfa. We're going to be taking off again about 4 to 6 inches off of each plant. And the reason why we want that 4 to 6 inches is because that's where the nutrients and all those indigenous microorganisms are at this peak of the moment. We're right about 8 o'clock in the morning. So this is the best time to harvest that alfalfa. Now, also, we don't want to go down too far into the growth because it gets a little woodier, and you're not able to get a best FPJ or fermented plant juice out of that. So that's what we're going to be doing with our alfalfa today. And then we're going to be showing you how to take these organic alfalfa pellets, and we're going to make us a steep tea with this that's just as powerful as the plant that we're growing right here in the garden. Now, right here we have a 5-gallon bucket of our tap water, but we do not want to use tap water for any of our inputs that are going into our garden. This has chlorine and chloramine in it. Yes, you can let this sit out and it'll get rid of the chlorine within probably about 24 to 48 hours, but the chloramine will not dissipate. You have to be able to break that bond. And what we're going to do with that is ascorbic acid, and this is all organic. This is vitamin C powder. So what that chloramine, this is a chemical bond that's put into the water by the municipalities in order to keep bacteria and fungus out of our drinking water, which kind of goes against everything that we're trying to do in the garden, because we want to grow microorganisms, bacteria, fungi. This is the answer to it. Also, it's a way to neutralize your water. If you got blueberries or anything like that, you can use this to lower the pH of your water, and we break it apart with this vitamin C powder. Now, when we're doing things like our fermented plant juices, our weed teas, our steep teas, there's a protocol that I like to follow, and it's SOS. Everybody knows that old acronym SOS, but we're switching that up a little bit for what we're doing out here in our garden, and we're calling that the smell test. We're going to be able to smell. If you're doing your brews and it has this foul, putrid type smell, that means it's bad. Those are bad anaerobic bacteria, and that's not good for what we're trying to do out here. So that's the S. The O is the observe. Make sure that we don't have any like green or black mold going on the top. If you get a white calm yeast on the top, that's perfectly fine. The last S, and that's to substantiate. I can use this to substantiate my pH, making sure that we're below that 4.5 to have this shelf stable. And then we also can use our refractometer to test the Brix on our plants to make sure that we are having those high Brix levels, which is again our substantiate in the S. And then we finally have a microscope where we could test the bacteria and the fungi to make sure that what we have and what we think we see is actually on a microscopic level. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to go ahead and use our ascorbic acid. We're going to test the water first, and then we're going to use some of our distilled water to rinse our probe off in between testing so that we get an accurate reading. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to some of our distilled water in there. We should have like a 7.0, which is neutral. So again, it's just plain old distilled water. And this is what we'll rinse our probe off between testing. So we want to start off with our base. Let's see where we land at. Again, water is going to have an ambient temperature as well. So we're early in the morning, so different times of the morning, the temperature is going to affect what your pH is going to be. So again, we're landing down to that 7.2, 7.3. See if we can get that 7.1, 7.0, 7.1. Keeps tapping back and forth. So there we go with that 7.0. And this is our distilled water. So we're going to set that to the side. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to rinse that probe off in between. So now we're going to go over here to our tap water and test and see what our tap water is. And that should be anywhere from a 7.2 to an 8.5. That's how wide a range our tap water should be. So there we are right there with our 7.4, 7.5. And it's going to bounce around because, again, those ambient temperatures out here. And my tap water is going to always be somewhere in that 7.4 all the way up to an 8.4, 8.5. We have a drop, a smidget, a pinch, a dash, and a tad. For a 5-gallon bucket, all we need is a drop of this ascorbic acid to break that bond of that chloramine, and that's going to help keep our microbes alive. So let's I'm gonna sit this down for a second, and we're going to take our drop spoon, go down, tap that off, and that's all that is, just a drop. See that? Just a drop. That's how powerful this stuff is. And we'll drop that in there. Now it could have an effect on your pH. It'll drop your pH slightly, but not very much with just that amount. That's just enough to break that bond of that chloramine. Now we have our water to a point to where it's not going to affect our microorganisms in a negative fashion by killing them off because it has chloramine and chlorine in it. We've broken that bond. And we'll just mix that up a little bit, and then we'll go back and we'll test that pH again. Now we might just get a little slight drop, but it's not going to be much. But even that significant amount is enough to change the, again, to break that chloramine bond. So we're going to go back to our distilled water and rinse off our probe. And then we'll go back to our municipal water and see if that changed the pH any. So that's why we only put that drop, that 1/64th of a teaspoon in there, and that's going to be enough to break that bond, and that's all we're trying to do right now. We don't really want to lower the pH. So here's the next step, and we're talking about creating this steep tea with our alfalfa. The alfalfa is going to swell up when you put it in there. See what that looks like? These are compressed pellets. So when you put that in that water, it's going to break that up and it's going to turn into like a little sludge. So what I want to do first, and you don't have to do this, but this is something that I have access to. And if you want to go back and see how I create my FPJs, this is a game changer. Once you learn how to do the FPJs, doing things like this weed teas and your fermented plant juices, as well as your steep teas, this is going to be a game changer for you. In order for your fermented plant juices to be shelf stable and to keep out any anaerobic bacteria, things like salmonella or E. coli, you want to make sure that this FPJ is a 4.5 or below. These bad bacteria or the anaerobic bacteria can't live in a pH that low. So anything below a 4.5 on our FPJs is a win. And this is fermented plant juice. And this is going to be 50% brown sugar that we use with 50% equal weight of our alfalfa. And let's just see what this pH is. That's how powerful this stuff is. So why are we using this right now? We're going to use this to inoculate our water for our steep tea. And that way your steep tea is dominated by the lactic acid bacteria, the good bacteria. And I'm going to show you how powerful this stuff is. 1 tablespoon to this 5-gallon bucket. And I'm going to show you the difference of how that drops the pH. And this is our inoculant of lactic acid bacteria. This is our Himbit FPJ. And like I said, I had it registered at a 4.1, but it's since dropped a little more, so we're right at a 3.8. That's okay. And now come down here and we'll mix this. And that pH has dropped from that 7.0 of our municipal water, and we're all the way down to a 6. So that 7.4, 7.5 is fighting against that buffer of that 3.9, and it's pulling it down to about a 6.0. And that's a really good spot that we want to start on with our FPJ, because again, this is just an inoculant. We're not trying to lower the pH. We're trying to inoculate it so our good bacteria, our good microbes will take over with our steep tea. And we're going to let that steep tea go for 24 to 48 hours. Anything longer than that, you're going to start risking anaerobic bacteria entering. So right now we're landing at a 6.3. So our Himbit dropped that 7.4, 7.5 down to a 6.3 solid. 1 cup of our organic alfalfa pellets. And we're just going to drop it into the bucket. That's it. 1 cup. And those are going to swell up. So what we want to do is we want to constantly mix this 24 to 48 hours, 36 hours, however many times you want to get to it to keep that oxygen going. You can use a bubbler on it, but this is all that's necessary. And you're going to see those pellets start to break up. They're going to swell up like yeast or bread when that water gets to saturating them. And then you can see that water already starting to turn a nice dark green. So again, remember, we're just going to be taking the top 4 to 6 inches. And I think for me, I'm going to look down and see where it gets a little more fibrous or woody down at the bottom. And I'm basically going to take this whole top half off. And right as they start to flower, that's the best time to harvest your alfalfa. And this is my first harvest of the season. I just put these in October. And what this is going to do also, it's going to make them spread out. Similar to how we pinch our peppers. It's going to be pretty much the same thing. And we got about 30 minutes to do this because we don't want those nutrients gassing off as this starts to wilt the longer that we have it out. This is going to stimulate the growth on it. as well as keep it managed. And what falls on the soil, that becomes fertilizer for the plant itself. So we're doing a whole lot of regenerative growing here. I guess one of the beautiful things about growing your own amendments to go in your garden that allows it to grow, you know exactly what's going into it. Because if you remember when I first planted these, I actually tilled into the top 3 inches of the soil aged wood chips that were already in this bed, so that allows the indigenous microorganisms to already be colonized on it, which forced the legumes to communicate with the bacteria in the soil, which is a melalote. So you can take this one little batch here and you can do a weed steep and you're gonna get 1 serving out of it. Probably a 5-gallon bucket similar to what we were doing there. Or you can do an FPJ and make a concentrate, and you talk about 1 to 500, 1 teaspoon, somewhere like that, to a gallon of water. And this will last you all season going into the next season, depending on how large your garden is. So this is another way, again, we're closing the loop and maximizing our potential of what we can grow with the minimum amount of outside input. That's what I call closing the loop. To be honest, I didn't even expect to be harvesting on this the first year. And again, we put this in October, and this has come out really nice. I'm really happy with the results of this. We're gonna get all those gibberellins and auxins that push to the top. And that's the reason why we're harvesting just the top, because that's the apical dominance. And this is where all the nutrients are pushed at the top, especially this time of the morning, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, still as that morning dew is on. And you want that morning dew to stay on there because that's where your indigenous microorganisms like the wild yeast and all of that have colonized those leaves, and we're capturing that. And once we add our lactic acid bacteria to it, our lactic acid serum, to start the fermentation on this, it's going to take those indigenous microorganisms and it's going to apply them, and they're going to multiply into this. And that's what makes this such a potent input going back into your garden. We're not even going to call this fertilizer. Now in just 15 minutes, we're going to look down at our alfalfa tea that we're going to be allowing it to brew for the next 24 to 48 hours. We already see a significant change in the color there. Look how dark that water is getting. I'm going to reach down there and let you see what those pellets look like now compared to what they look like when we first put them in. See how they're starting to swell, and then you can literally crush them now. And as the nighttime goes on, it's going to get even that much more. You feel a lot of that sludge at the bottom. And this is why you want to keep mixing this to make sure that we get all of the nutrients out of this. You see how dark green that's turning? Just mix it really strong to break those pellets up. And you can use this 100% on your garden. You don't even have to dilute this. This is very mild. Whereas our FPJ that we're making, we have to use that 1 to 500 to 1 to 1,000. That's how powerful this is. So if you're not growing your alfalfa, this is the next best thing here. And you're gonna see a massive burst of growth in all your plants in the garden, growing out the box over here.